My product is what a customer thinks it is. And I intentionally keep this up in my office because, as we're, pushing out new features on a website, we're actually revamping our digital strategy right now. It can be easy for us to make assumptions about what we think the customer wants, but until we actually present it to a customer, we don't really know what they think it is until we hear their feedback, right? So our perception, because we're the builders, we're the makers of it, can be completely different than the consumers. I'm actually quivering a little bit around the date of the 15th of next month because we're launching our new website, and it's totally different than everything else in the real estate space. I went out on a limb. The project's proceeding very, very nicely, but I don't know how the market's going to receive it. It may flop. And if it does, that will be a mark against my career. I don't really take failure very well, so we'll see what happens. But you learn from failing. You can always tweak things. So a product is what a customer thinks it is. So we're going to talk about customers a lot today. Understanding your customer. Who's heard about and I've got the milkshake up here. Who's heard about the case study from Clayton Christensen? He's the Harvard guy who, the case study I think is called, what did you hire that milkshake to do? Anybody heard of it? It's pretty cool. It's a really, really long one, but it's actually called Hiring a Milkshake. So Clayton Christensen, I don't think he's alive anymore. He may have passed recently. But he's just a brilliant marketer. I mean, if he's teaching marketing at Harvard, he knows his stuff, right? And he was engaged by a fast food chain. Actually, a buddy of his was engaged by a fast food chain to figure out why a certain fast food chain was not selling enough milkshakes. And they went into the test kitchen and they tried tweaking the formula. They surveyed customers. They said, hey, how can we improve our product? How can we improve this milkshake so that you would buy it more often? And they got all sorts of feedback, hey, add more sugar, make it more thick, do whatever. And they created that product for the customers, and sales were just flat. And so they looked at it from, okay, maybe people actually don't want a milkshake. Maybe they're hiring the milkshake to do a job for them. And what they found out after watching traffic going into the restaurants and seeing what was happening with those people, they figured out why people were buying milkshakes in the morning. Can anybody guess why? So they found out that most people were buying milkshakes because they had a commute ahead of them. And they wanted something to do on their commute. They wanted something that took the place of breakfast that wasn't messy. So like bagels or donuts or something like that. It's very arduous to mess with when you're trying to drive, right? So they hired the milkshake to pass the time. They liked it really, really thick. And to also fulfill their nourishment so that, when 10 o'clock came across in the morning, they weren't hungry. They could make it to noon. So people weren't actually buying a milkshake. They were hiring the milkshake to accomplish a specific job for them. And that job was to not only provide a little bit of nourishment, but also to satisfy their need to do something during their long and boring commute. And then they took it a step further, which was they realized that parents did not want to have a thick milkshake for their kids. You don't want a kid to sit around and suck down a milkshake and have it take an hour. So they tweaked it a little bit more for the children and made it actually thinner. So this is some insight into not necessarily, when a product is what a customer thinks it is, they probably didn't know that they were hiring a milkshake to do a certain job. So there can be a little bit of a false positive here because you might get feedback from a customer and tweak it and do exactly what you want, what they think they want, but they may not actually know what they want. Kind of like what Apple has done. Apple invents products that we never knew that we wanted, and who here has an Apple product of some sort? I mean, it's amazing, right? So always be thinking about that. Think about, marketing is it's kind of where all of us go who are not coders or financial people or something like that, right? But it's also very, very challenging.